Morning, it's Fatima Ali with The Real Deal, and with no further ado, we bring on with us my friend and the WURD friend, Mr. Earl Harvey, who is the publisher of the Black Professional News. He's like one of the hardest working people I know in journalism. I really admire the way you roll, Mr. Earl Harvey. I have to say that from the beginning, because every time I see you everywhere, you're always working. You got a trunk full of papers, and you're just pushing. This is the spirit of Ujamaa.
It really is, and thank you, Fatima, for even noticing the amount of work that goes into publishing a newspaper.
Oh, my gosh.
It is unbelievable.
And you know what? For our listeners who don't know, tell us how much work goes into the Black Professional News.
Well, first of all, I don't know how anybody can publish a newspaper on a daily basis, because it is absolutely the most incredible amount of work you could ever do. But, you know, when you're doing something you love, that you really love doing, it's not really work. It's like a labor of love.
And you're working for yourself, so that means a lot, too.
You're working for yourself, and, you know, if you look at your business as a mission, and you really have a purpose, and you're trying to make a difference in the community, then you get up every day, and you're driven by this desire to do what you're doing, because if you feel you're making a difference in the community, it just drives you to do a better job. So I look at my business really as a mission to inform the community, to educate the community, to entertain the community, much like what WURD is doing.
Now, it is a labor of love, and we all work 24/7. It's like you go to bed thinking about your show, you go to bed thinking about the event, you wake up, that's the first thing on your mind. My children talk to me, Earl, and I'm like listening with a half an ear because my mind is on work. And, you know, you're right when you say that it's a labor of love, but also there's that whole idea of cooperative economics. The advertisers that you have are African American mostly, and one of the things I've observed about your newspaper is that it's continued to grow bigger. I mean, the advertising section just grows bigger.
Well, you know, Fatima, it takes a while to get the message into the community, to re-educate our consumers and our readers and our businesses as well of the importance of marketing and advertising and how this drives the business and how it's important for the community to support black-owned businesses, but not just black-owned businesses, also those businesses who value the black consumer market and choose to advertise in black media. We really have to recognize that they may not be black-owned, but for years we've had businesses in our community that have supported the community with jobs and have supported the community with charitable donations and just having a presence in the community.
I think
these businesses need to be supported as well.
And I think you drive home a really, really important point with that, because there are businesses who land in the black community who give back nothing. They just reap the benefits. They take their money and they leave. They go out to the suburbs. They don't support the community that they work in. And we know who they are. But like you said, they don't give back. So tell us how you have been able to grow the Black Professional News. You're a bi-monthly still?
We're a monthly publication. We started off 13 years ago as a quarterly publication, published in conjunction with the National Alliance of Market Developers, NAMD, which is a marketing organization. And I chose to use the newspaper with NAMD as a concept to get marketing and small business and community information out through the readers through a newspaper format. Now, we have wonderful publications in the black community, the Tribune and New Observer and the Scoop and the Neighborhood Leader and West Side Weekly. We have so many wonderful publications. But I realized that there was not a publication in the community that serviced the business and professional community.
Right. And you know what? I really also appreciate that you've continued to grow your online platform. When I look at some of the other community, for lack of a better word, I look at the Philadelphia Business Journal. You know, they are not consumer friendly in that they are so expensive. But we can find the Black Professional News anywhere for free.
For free. Then that's important, Fatima. I didn't want to have any artificial barriers in place to prevent people from accessing information. Because as many of us know in our community, we will spend money on food, clothing, entertainment, phones, anything to make us look good, sound good, or feel good. But when it comes to seeing the value of paying for information, a lot of times in our community, we don't make that connection. So I wanted to make sure that if I was going to put information out to the community, I wanted them to feel free to pick it up, consume it, and share it with people without saying, well, I'm not going to pay $1 for that. However, we will spend $100 to see Jay-Z or Beyonce or you name any other musical group out there or any designer label of clothes out there. We will put a premium on looking good, feeling good, and sounding good, but not always a premium on information.
Now, some people might not realize that you are a journalist by trade. What convinced you to start your own newspaper and one of this genre?
Well, I'm more of a communicator by trade. My degree from Temple University is in radio, television, and film, and I did minor in journalism. But I've always been driven by the business aspect of communications and not so much the talent and the print side. So I chose to put a business publication in the marketplace because I have a business interest. And I figured with the communications background that I have access to the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, National Alliance of Minorities in Communications, and Black Public Relations Society, and National Alliance of Market Developers. These are all marketing communications organizations. So by surrounding myself with all this wonderful talent that's in the marketplace, I've been able to use my newspaper as a forum to connect the black professional organizations, the small business organizations, and get information out into the marketplace. So I'm more of a business person and less of a journalist.
Well, Emmett, let me ask you this. Because the newspaper industry, paper period, has changed, as has radio. So you have continued to be in the major market and in the major business by expanding your online platform. So if people don't have an internet connection, they can pick up your paper anywhere. But if they just don't want to be bothered with paper, they can also go online. And not every publication has been that online friendly.
Well, you're right, Fatima. And what's happened is, in the last 3 years, the newspaper business has totally changed. Advertising has been shifted from print publications, TV and radio, onto online. And corporate America, always sees this, has this gold rush mentality that when they see something new that they consider innovative and exciting, they throw all of their resources and all of their money and all of their advertising into this brave new medium, which the internet has become. But what publishers have not realized is that in order for them to stay viable as a newspaper entity in this new media internet environment, you can no longer just be a one-trick pony and just print a newspaper and expect people to, number one, in an economic recession, spend $1 to $2 per day out of their income to purchase your newspaper. We have to find ways as newspapers, to transform into media companies where we're providing information in multiple formats where people can access it at their convenience. Right now, people can get the news applications on their cell phones, CNN and CNBC. You're getting news on Twitter and Facebook instantly in real time. And newspapers are printed a day behind the news.
Exactly. And people don't quite get that. So it's not immediate news.
It's not immediate anymore. So newspapers have outdated themselves because their medium is outdated. What I chose to do was to take my format and not compete with news. I am not a newspaper in the traditional sense. I'm printed as a newspaper, but I disseminate information and not news because people are getting news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The things they find in my newspaper is empowerment information, business information, networking information, professional development information that they're not getting in standard newspapers. And by going online, I'm bringing my newspaper right to their phones, their laptops, their PDAs, their Blackberries. I'm bringing all the information right to them with the click of a mouse. They can click the link for my newspaper and get my newspaper right on their device no matter where they are and find out what's happening, or they can visit my website, www.earlharvey.com, for information and business.
Now, speaking of bills, we have a couple to pay, but when I come back, I want to talk about your ability, and this is not an insult. I've known you for a long time, Earl, so I want you to know this is coming from the heart.
Sure.
Of your shameless self-promotion.
Oh,
But you're
thank
so
you.
good at it, you know. But I want to talk about that when we come back, because a lot of people could take a page from your book. So
Okay.
we're going to pay some bills, and we're going to talk about the publisher of the Black Professional newspaper. It is called the Black Professional News, and we're going to talk more with Earl Harvey about how you too can learn how to be a shameless self-promoter, because it works for him. It could work for you too. Back in a minute. And it's 23 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock, and I picked that music especially for you, Earl. We keep our secrets to ourselves, but I thought that was appropriate music for you and me, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Anyway.
You're live right now, that's for sure, and every day at 10 a.m.
All the way live, baby, let me tell you. Okay, so now we are talking about shameless self-promotion, but it has made you a viable and prosperous businessman. I appreciate that.
Well, let me tell you something, Fatima. As a marketing consultant, when I was elected president of the National Alliance of Market Developers, we're a marketing organization back in the year, I guess, 1996. I had this very visible platform in the marketing community and in the community at large as the president of this organization. And I realized that I wanted to get NAMD's name synonymous with my name into the marketplace of Philadelphia, as we talked about marketing and advertising and communication strategies for the black community. So part of building a brand and getting your name out there, as you say, is having a platform and becoming a recognized expert in what you do. And I was blessed to have the opportunity to lead NAMD for over 10 years in a leadership position, and using that platform to get my mission of empowering the black community economically, empowering small business development, networking, development, all these things that I truly believed in, I was able to introduce into the Philadelphia marketplace through NAMD. And that's where I built my brand, because what happened was I became known as a source of information. I was sending out emails weekly, and before even email, I was doing what they called broadcast faxing, where I would get people's fax numbers and put them in 1,000 at a time into a fax machine and send them out all over the city. And people were just getting, now they call it spam by email. But I was spamming people with faxes, back in the 90s and the year 2000s, just getting information into the community. And people would tell me, Fatima, they would crack me up. And they would say, I got a fax from you at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to sleep.
This
and
is a man on a mission.
Going off.
But let me ask you this now on a serious tip. And I'm very serious about this. We have a lot of young people who are listening, and they are looking, to figure out what they want to do. We've got lots of interns around here. And I'm just wondering, what made you choose being in business for yourself and publishing your newspaper as opposed to being on the radio or being on television? Because you have all of the facets that it would take to do that too.
I've always been, Fatima, I have had an entrepreneurial spirit. And I worked for the United States Postal Service when I was putting myself through college back in the 70s and the 80s. And I realized that working for someone else had its limitations, because I had the opportunity to get promoted to upper management about 5 or 6 times and never got those promotions because I wasn't politically connected or I didn't know anybody. People, whatever the reasons were.
You didn't play the game. Come on, be honest. Right.
And I realized that in order for me to play the game, I had to sacrifice so much of myself to do that, that at 27 years old, I was not willing to make that compromise. So I decided at 27, 28 that I wanted to get out of that game, and I wanted to start my own game.
Okay.
So part of realizing what you want to be in life is understanding what you want to do in your life. And I realized that I had so much more to give to the community at large other than working a night shift at the Postal Service, where I was making really good money. But I realized that if I was going to really make my mark out here, I was driven enough and I was talented enough. You have to believe in yourself and your skills. So I've been building the Earl Harvey brand since I was in college. And I was giving parties, and I was working and going to school and putting myself out there. I became a supervisor at the Postal Service at 24 years old. I was the youngest black supervisor ever promoted in the history of the Postal Service at 24 years old. So I became synonymous with the Postal Service and hard work and doing work in the community. So I've been building my brand, Fatima, for a very long time. So for me to be where I am right now as an entrepreneur and a publisher and a media consultant and having a media company, it is not by accident. I went to college. I worked at the post office. I bought a business. I've worked very hard. And I want young people to know, in particular, that when you getting out into business or doing whatever you want to do career-wise, there's a process involved in that. And young people nowadays look at the videos and they read the magazine and see the bling-bling, and all they see is the end result.
But they can have the bling-bling. They just might not have it next week.
That's what they want. So that's what they're being fed in the media.
And that's a whole nother story. And maybe one day after the holidays, you'll come in and do an hour with us and we can field some calls from some young people. But speaking of network marketing and network events, Friday, December 9th, you are going to have Mr. George Frazier, who is the networking expert, and we know of him internationally, and you're going to have him back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, George Frazier and I developed a personal relationship about 20 years ago. George Frazier is the premier networking guru in Black America. He founded this whole concept of coming together in the modern times. Of course, networking is not new. But in the modern times, he put together this concept where he thought that power networking or networking was a way to empower and uplift our communities, using the same principles of Kwanzaa that you all are speaking about every single day on WURD. None of this is new. Go back to Marcus Garvey, okay, and with his concept of black empowerment and black economic development, black during the Depression. So we've had incarnations of black empowerment all throughout the diaspora, all throughout the history of blacks in this country. So nothing we're saying now is new.
And if anybody were to go to Africa, any country in Africa, or down to the Caribbean, or any place in the African diaspora, that's what they would find is black people in business for themselves, starting at the age of 7, 8, as soon as they can talk, walk, or whatever. And it just fascinates me, that we don't quite get that here. We've got to go back to that.
We do. And that's what George Frazier is talking about. That's what we have decided to bring back to Philadelphia with George Frazier. Wanda Davis and I of Unique Productions have decided to help George Frazier expand his business network that he started in Cleveland, Ohio, where he has over 50,000 international black network people in his network. And we're going to bring his success net to Philadelphia starting in 2012, where we can have networking events, economic development events, empowerment events, all going on in Philadelphia to raise this conversation about how we can support each other and not be dependent on the federal government or all these other, formats that we have in place that are actually not working for us, by the way.
No, they aren't. They aren't, because they continue to downsize. They continue to outsource. You mentioned the post office. Look at what's happening with the post office.
Without a doubt.
And I'm just wondering, why didn't the post office just suspend Saturday delivery a long time ago? I can't quite get that, but that's another discussion.
There's always personal interest involved that just transcends the things that we don't even see that are going on. This Friday, we're going to start this conversation about how we can change the paradigms in Philadelphia to create more successful entrepreneurs, stabilize our communities, and recreate the education system. And we're going to start this Friday, December the 9th, at the Park Avenue Banquet Hall, 4942 Parkside Avenue. This is a free networking community empowerment event. Park Avenue Banquet Hall is a black-owned banquet hall right across from the Mann Music Center. It's the old cornucopia. And David Smith is the owner now. He's recreated this building. He's remodeled it. It's beautiful in there. And we want to encourage people, as we're talking about supporting black-owned businesses, look at the black catering halls that we have in Philadelphia and the black restaurants as alternatives to some of these mainstream places that we go to spend our money, hotels and restaurants and chain restaurants. We have wonderful black-owned establishments right in the community. And this Friday, December 9th, David Smith has opened up his doors to us to host George Frazier for a networking event from 5 to 8 4942 Parkside Avenue.
And before December 17th, we'll have you back to talk about your holiday party. That's a little bit different, but it's in the same spirit as your networking event on Friday. Earl Harvey, thank you so much for joining me, and you're always welcome here.
You can reach us at www.earlharvey, EarlHarvey.com. Phone number 267-244-3860. Thank you so much, Fatima.
Anytime. Thanks you for your time. Earl Harvey, publisher of Black Professional News. He doesn't just talk about it. He is about it.